everyone. Welcome again to another episode of A Cup of Tea with Auntie Winnie, also known as Winnie the Music Educator, on my social media platforms. And today, as I pour a nice hot cup of ginger tea made from scratch, I enjoy my tea in the morning, especially. It's really nice, and I think I've also reached that age where drinking tea is a lifestyle, and I wouldn't trade anything for my tea. It makes me feel alive. You know, the small things in life that matter, that tea matters. And if you're somebody who belongs in Generation X and above, you'll understand. If you like tea, this is the time when now you want more tea. Growing up, I wasn't so keen. I never really enjoyed tea, and I used to wonder what my dear late parents used to always want a cup of tea. Like if you don't have tea, I used to hear this saying that goes that without a cup of tea you get a headache. And I was wondering, what is that all about? Those were the days when we were young and we used to like to drink juice and, take cold things. I mean, I see kids nowadays taking things from the fridge, like when it's so cold, and I'm like, you're not even afraid you're going to get sick. But then I realized it's all about growing up and also living in different age seasons, because we all start from zero to hero. So I don't know if hero is 100 years or what. But as we grow through time, we pass through different seasons of growth and different things emerge and come up. So right now, I'm at the age where everything is, things that I used to take for granted. For example, as I say, my cup of tea are things that I treasure so much. We are not so big on the things that we used to like as adults. Growing up in school, I used to say, when I grow up, because I came from a very modest background. I've said this in previous episodes, and that was a good thing because it taught me a lot to appreciate, to value things, even the little things. I used to say, "Oh, I'm going to be buying sausages, and when I grow up and I have my own money, I'll eat as many sausages as I want." One of the one of the things that I remember with a lot of nostalgia was what we now see everywhere: apples. I grew up in a generation where apples were not the norm. We used to see apples in textbooks. A for apple, and I used to look at this beautiful fruit, shiny, and wonder what it was. Then now the apples are everywhere. Our kids, the generation of our children now, the Gen Zs and the Alpha, for them apples is a normal fruit like oranges or banana. So yeah, those are just reminding myself about the times when I grew up in the 70s and 80s as a young child, teenager, and now I'm at this age. And so my motivation to start A Cup of Tea with Auntie Winnie stemmed from the fact that we keep saying that older people should have wisdom. The older you grow, the more wisdom you're supposed to carry around. It's not always true, I agree. Nowadays, everything you have to put a disclaimer. But for most part, by the time you can't compare somebody even who is 20 years old with somebody who is 10 years old. There's that gap in the generation in terms of experience, and you'll find it's always nice and it's always relevant for older people to impart, hopefully, life's wisdom to the younger people. So that is my motivation to do this. Also because I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, and I've gone through a lot of experiences. I also love people. I've interacted with lots of people of different age groups. I do that actually every day. In my job as a music educator, I teach all types of people of different characters, male and female, and different ages and with different backgrounds. So that interaction in itself has given me a lot of wisdom on how to interact with different types of people. And I think one of the reasons why I love teaching is that you get to psychologically relate to people and accommodate different personalities. Otherwise, then you can't do your job. A teacher has to, a great teacher, a teacher who brings great change in a student's life, whatever age that student is one who has an inspirational teacher, so to speak. I want to believe I'm one. And probably some of my students whom I've impacted over the years, it's been about 30 plus years, they could come and attest to this if they get to watch this video and maybe give testimonials. I would love that. But really, we have to exercise great levels of empathy. And today, that in itself brings me closer to what I really want to talk about. I always want to talk about a lot of things, but I want to focus my conversation around intergenerational relationships and conflict. And the reason why I'm saying that, because right now we have several generations in the world, and of course the bigger generation is usually, I think, the people who are probably in their 20s, and those ones are the ones we're calling Gen Z. Yeah, I'm a Gen X. We still have the older generation, Gen Ys. I think we still have, is it Gen Ys, the baby boomers, and then we have now the Generation X, and then now we have the millennials, then we have the Gen Zs, we have the Gen Alphas, and so that's a lot of generations. And what you find is that the newer generations come into a space where they find all these other people existing, or the younger people come in to find other people who are ahead of them. And I don't know how much interaction we get to do as we grow up, but when now going back to myself as this Generation X, when I was a younger child growing up in my youth, as a kid and then a teenager and then become an adult, I remember with nostalgia, we had a lot of there was a sense of community. There was a bigger, greater sense of community during my time as a child, where we were raised up by a community. In fact, they used to say, a child belongs to the community. We used to have that as a way of life, that a child belonged to the community. So what that meant is that the community as a whole impacted in any child's life. And this includes all the generations would come together into one particular child's life to help them grow in a healthy way and accommodate and see things in different perspectives that would make them also be able to fit in with the current with other generations of people, and also activities and changes of seasons. And so that was how we grew up. And one thing I love, having grown up in my generation, what I know and which I would like to share, was that we were brought up with a big sense of value for authority. I cannot emphasize this even more than, I mean, really, the reality was, if somebody was older than you, and when I say older, we're talking about 10 years and above, that person had a certain authority over you, whether it was a sibling or an auntie, an uncle, a house manager. We used to call them aunties or uncles if it was male or female. When they come to your house, they were supposed to, you as a child in that home was supposed to respect that authority. And then going now into the highest level of authority, so basing it now on the family, because that's a good way of looking at it, and what I want to talk about as a current situation, especially in the country that I'm in, where there's a lot of intergenerational conflict. And so it concerns me as an authority, as a person of my age. I want to lend my voice to what is going on, and hopefully it will be able to help somebody, or we can have healthy conversations about this and how to resolve conflicts amongst different generations. But so going back to giving regard, or respecting authority, this was huge. You were not, go to school, teachers. You go into a bus. We used to travel with public means those days. Probably for some of us, if you're going to a school where you have to use public means, it was automatic. If you're a child of school going age and there are older people in the bus, there was no way you're going to sit and they're standing. Simple, basic rules that were not written, but that is how we were brought up. If you had an auntie, a relative coming to visit you in their home, somebody whom you'd call an auntie or an elder cousin, or a friend of your parents, there is that way you would show them respect. You stand up. How do you sit in front of people? As a girl, we were told, if you have a dress, you pull it down. Wear a dress that is long enough, to cover, what you might call as private parts, so that you're not causing attraction in the wrong place. And that was a sign of respect. It took us a long way, I'll be honest. We would not be allowed in the home front, for example, to just address your father the way you like. The father was the first line of authority at home, and should still be. You can't, even now, I want to ask a question at this point. If you have children, if you're an older person, or now you're a younger person who has, even with your parents, and even older, if you still have your parents, how do you address your parents? How do you address your mom? How do you address your father? How do you approach them? Even in terms of the way you dress, in the way, the words, choice words, the words that you use. These are things that are, they set a precedence into also even how, when you look now into a bigger situation, as in terms of now how a country grows. Because a country is now the wider community, which is made up of different settings of families coming together. And then now you choose leadership that can represent your needs at different points. That is why we choose leaders. We go through elections. It gets to that point. But everything, that value starts from the home front. How we bring up children, our children. And right now there's been that conflict between the older generation and the younger generation. The younger people from the country I come from are agitating for better living conditions and their rights to be regarded as important citizens, which 100% they have every right to do so, in my opinion. The same leaders or the same authority which is governing, which we have chosen now. When you have leaders running a country, for example, they're representing all generations. So at that point, the intergenerational gaps are now becomes lower, because now we are in one space as people who are looking up into a certain authority, upon a certain authority that we have chosen to take care of us, to guide us, to lead us by example. And for me, my concern is, where is the empathy? The lack of empathy in leadership, and now even I see it in this generation, it's even lacking starting at home, where there's no much empathy sometimes in the way we relate to one another, where you want to force maybe people in a box as an authority, or trying to bring, even if you're a parent, all your children to be the same. Nobody is the same. And that's the point. If you're leading people, everyone is different. By the time you're becoming a leader of any sort, you need to evaluate your empathy levels. And honestly, the higher the hierarchy of leadership, I feel the more the empathy that is needed to lead with wisdom, to lead a people who, at the end of the not everyone will be happy with you. That is for sure. Just even the same way in a small family setting, we had what we call the black sheep. There's always somebody who just stands out to be their own person, yeah? And you're wondering, my dad was never like this, my mom was never like this, but this person who is my sibling, for example, they're just, where did they get this from? There's always that. But even then, we still have to exercise empathy. I'm a firstborn in a family of 5. And I can tell you, if there's something that has challenged me over the years, and I think I'm a very empathic person because probably of that role. I've been that type of firstborn who also has double played the role of being a parent to my siblings. Even now, they look upon me. I'm grateful. It means there's something right I have done. and demonstrated. Sometimes I feel the weight of enormous weight of that responsibility, because it's not just there. Now I have my own children, I have my own home. I am a teacher. I've taught so many people. I'm still teaching every day. I'm meeting different people, different characters, and I still have to have empathy and compassion. Those, for me as a leader, help me to be the best I can be for the subjects that I represent and I serve. Compassion. You know, this cup of tea that I love so much, I usually carry this whole thermos to class. My students are witness to this. And you know what? At any time when I need that tea, if my student is with me, whoever is there with me, I ask them politely, would you like a cup of tea? And I can tell you 90% of my students who enjoy tea, they love it. There are some who come to my class just because of this tea, because they love it so much, because it's made with love, it's shared with love. There is no way a person cannot thrive where there's love, where there's peace, where there's compassion, where there's empathy. And I want to challenge. I could say so many things, but for those who come from where I'm coming from, a country where there's been young people agitating and fighting for their rights, there've been lots of killings, lots of horrible things that really boil down to lack of compassion, lack of empathy, lack of consideration, and I don't want to use the word poor leadership, because it goes both ways. The younger people also, you guys, I'm also younger to somebody, but I'm talking about our children, that Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I challenge you. I also want to encourage you to learn how to address the older people. Just the same way in your home, if you have your parents, there's a way you're meant to address them so that they can also take care of you. And parents, don't encourage bad behavior in your children in the name of you want them to of liberalization. I think so, being liberal. What is being liberal? Young minds need to be governed. As a teacher in class, I'm not just going to stand there when students are calling me names or talking to my face. I won't allow for that. I've not allowed for that, and that's increasing. I've talked about this in other episodes, where there's lack of respect even for teachers in class. We all can always quit. Then what happens if all teachers quit? Who is going to teach the children? So we have to learn to teach young people to respect older people, one, and authority. And then if you need to agitate for your rights or say something is wrong, there are channels. In my time, we even used to write letters. We didn't write letters. But then again, leaders, because it's all full circle. I want to believe, as an older person who has been a leader in different dockets, I even lead in chamas. Also, because once you are an authority, you do have an edge over the subject. There's always that. And so because you have an edge in terms of your authority, it's so easy to misuse your authority to quash the voice of your subjects. And that, I think, for me, is the worst case scenario. The fact that you're a leader, you already have an upper hand. Kindly use that authority wisely, with empathy, with compassion, with love, and always looking towards making peace. That's why you're a leader. I'm very passionate. Many people have expressed their opinions on what is going on, the unrest in the country. But it is important. Something has to budge. Leaders, we have an upper hand. Let's calm down, because we already have an upper hand. We don't have to push our muscles anymore. What for? Because the subjects who are depending on you, they don't have that upper hand the way you do. You are the ones. The leaders are given the mandate to come up with systems that work for the people. I personally face a lot of frustrations every day. You need some paperwork done. There are supposed to be systems that are computerized to make things work. In my days, everything was manual. And as much as we used to wait for long, things would move. But now the level of corruption is so high. Every step of the way, something that is computerized is supposed to be done so quickly in terms of accessing service, we are still fighting. You still have to bribe different people along the way, leaders, and those are people working probably in government offices who have been given the mandate to serve, and in different departments. It's a shame on us as leaders when we are quashing the subjects that we're supposed to serve and demand. The same subjects have given you that mandate, through taxation and all these things. You're being paid rightfully a salary, but you don't deliver the services. You make sure you block systems where the common person, in my country say common mwananchi, is supposed to access service. What do you expect? Eventually it is going to boil over, and we should also stop using. One of the things I'm appreciating about the younger generation, the Gen Z, so to speak, right now, is because they're the older ones in that youthfulness. They're coming up to voice their concerns. Let's also listen to them, because they see, most of them, we are their parents, and they see that we don't have a voice. We are working so hard, and every day when you go home and you're mourning about how things are so hard, you are expecting a system to work for you in terms of provision, and it's the same system that is manipulating you and demanding for corruption, whether it's bribes so that you can be served. It gets to them as a frustration. And now, because we are in the era of technology where things are open, the young people see what else is happening everywhere. You can't hide information from them. They start questioning the systems. So, authorities, I plead with you. I would love to do more sessions on this. I'd love to have a panel to do this. I just want to also contribute to the well-being of my motherland, to the well-being of my country. I love my country. I love my people. I am a teacher, so I interact with all types of people, all ages, and I know my life is made better every day because I have a spirit of sharing, compassion, love, peace, harmony. And what I use as a medium, music, is supposed to create a sense of well-being for everybody. So I'm blessed because of that. So it gives you a sense of humility that you need to be able to carry your duties with all with clarity and with fairness and with love and care for people. Let's go back to that. Most of our parents, most of them are gone to their maker. They taught us to do things with a sense of community. It's not just about you. You want to pig out everything. You want to pig out every resource that is supposed to be shared everywhere. Even in the family, we shared. You had one loaf of bread, you had 8 people. Everybody must have an equal share. Let's change our ways. Let's do better as a nation. Let's do better as a people. Let's do better in terms of bringing intergenerational cohesion. I would love to, if you feel that this is a topic we cannot exhaust in one video, what you try to contribute to what you'd like to hear us address in this episode. If you want to come and be part of this, I'm happy to be invited wherever to speak, to listen, and to collaborate on how we can do better for ourselves. So this is A Cup of Tea with Auntie Winnie, also known as Winnie the Music Educator. I really hope that something has gone, you have been ministered to, and you've taken something positive. This has been said and with so much love and care. And if you have not already done this, I would just like to urge you to go to my YouTube channel, Winnie the Music Educator, and check out my latest song called Upendo and Naamani, which was inspired by the current situation, what I've just talked about. Just to go back to the basics of humanity. Do the needful. If you like it, please go ahead, like it. If you could subscribe so that you can get more, we can encourage each other to grow and share. I'm really, really grateful, even so far, for all those who have done so. And God bless you. God bless Kenya.